Good afternoon, my name is Isaac Dival and this is my presentation on how racism in cricket has been represented in the media. A recent occurrence of this is Yorkshire Cricket Club treatment of Azeem Rafiq. Azeem Rafiq is a 31-year-old English cricketer of Pakistan heritage. He has played first-class cricket in England since 2008 until 2019. Playing for Yorkshire twice, Derbyshire once and Lincolnshire once respectively. In 2020, Azeem Rafiq stated in an interview with Wisden that members within the Yorkshire County Cricket Club had allegedly made racial remarks and harassment towards himself and other members of the team who were of different ethnicities. He claimed at one stage the captain of the team was openly racist and a teammate made a comment about the number of Asian players within the squad, saying we need to have a word about that. In other interviews with the likes of the BBC and Cricinfo, he said he had been made to feel like an outsider during his time at Yorkshire, and he felt the club had shown many clear signs of institutional racism whilst he was at the club. Some of the experiences he's described included club members using racial slurs towards himself and other players of non-white backgrounds being told to go back to where they came from. He then stated that the traditional cultures of cricket, like drinking, that had ran deep through Yorkshire, were a big impact on Rafiq's feeling uncomfortable and peer pressured into joining in during his time there. This is because of his religious beliefs and not drinking being an idea he follows strictly. However, the insensitivity and pressure of teammates and staff around him led to him stating he had tried things in the early stages of his career to fit in, but as a Muslim, he now looks back on and regrets. In September 2020, Yorkshire Cricket Club reached out to Rafiq to formally discuss the allegations he had made in previous months. After these discussions, the club set up a formal investigation into the statements Rafiq highlighted. They also held a review of the club's policies and cultural procedures. This led to Squire Patton Boggs, a global law firm, and an independent panel chaired by Samir Pathak being set up to review the investigation findings. After months of investigations, a conclusion was found in August 2021. Yorkshire then released a club statement of the incident, saying Azeem Rafiq had been a victim of inappropriate behaviour and they sincerely apologise that this has happened. Despite Rafiq's claims being backed by the review made by Squire Patton Boggs, the cricketer wasn't happy with the club statement, saying they have downplayed racism by phrasing it as inappropriate behaviour. He also accused the club of caring more about their reputation than their players after it was announced no one would be punished because of the incident at hand. In wake of all this, Rafiq has now retired, and after pressure from the ECB and media about their decision not to discipline any members of the club, Yorkshire chairman Roger Hutton and CEO of the club Mark Arthur stepped down from their positions. I have compared two news sources following of the story at hand to do with Azeem Rafiq. I chose The Sun and the Daily Mail. The Sun have used very precise headlines with the first words or phrase highlighted in blue to really grab your attention, whereas the Daily Mail headlines are more detailed and often consist of a quote from the interview showing what the article is going to be about. As you can see in The Sun, they include a specific point or person involved in the allegations at that point. For example, the first one, of course, includes Azeem Rafiq's name, as it was the first article on the issue. They also include powerful adjectives like shocking and inhumane, most likely in order to entice the reader into wanting to know how bad the situation really is. In the bottom two articles from The Sun, they have used repetition to really get it stuck into the mind of the readers. They repeat Azeem Rafiq, racism in Yorkshire. These three words were the three main points of the whole allegation saga, from the fact that Azeem Rafiq was racially abused at Yorkshire Cricket Club. However, to include a repetitive theme in two consecutive article headlines is a good technique used by The Sun, as it will ingrain itself into the reader's mind. But also for SEO reasons, having three of the same words in the headlines means it will come up in search engines clearly and more often. On the Daily Mail, on the headlines on the right, the Daily Mail clearly uses more detailed headlines to make more sense of the story below. This can be seen in much longer length of each headline compared to the short snappiness of the Sun's. They usually include a quote from a person involved in the article below. For example, headline 2 leads with a comment made by former England cricketer Paul Newman. The 63-year-old said, Azeem Rafiq was brave, dignified and articulate, and this was certainly no witch hunt. They also draw focus away from Rafiq slightly and put the spotlight on other actions of players who were involved in the allegations. For example, you can see in Article 3, Michael Vaughan's reaction to being highlighted as one of the people who discriminated against Rafiq is the main point. In this section of the first article I looked at from The Sun, they used language and phrasing to show sympathy towards Rafiq and to help the readers feel empathetic towards the cricketer. In the first box is a quote from Rafiq as a testimonial saying, "The treatment I received from Yorkshire Cricket Club was inhumane. They were not bothered, they didn't care, and when I got a call to say there was no heartbeat," talking about his newborn baby. I think including this quote in the article has shown huge amounts of sympathy towards Rafiq in the sense that during this race battle with Yorkshire he had other issues to deal with back home, but despite this he was willing to step forward and make claim, but the club were not interested in his personal well-being. The second box is a short sentence saying Rafiq had to pause to compose himself, once again including this adds sympathy to the story because it shows how much it is affecting him, but also affected him already. In the fifth article I have looked at the Daily Mail. They have included a short phrase from Rafiq. He said, "It hurts." He said this when talking about the response from the cricketing world being substandard compared to those from the rest of the world. Including this can make the audience feel sympathetic towards Rafiq and possibly make them want him to receive the support he deserves from his sport. The quote draws further attention towards how Rafiq is feeling throughout this whole situation. Despite him doing a good thing, he has a negative feeling towards it. Imagery has also been used in all of the articles I looked at. In The Sun, the Article 1, the very first image The Sun used is an image of Rafiq upset and wiping tears away. They most likely included this in the article from the start to make the audience feel sorry for the cricketer and emphasise with the 31-year-old. Below this image is an image of Alex Hales. No, to the right of this image is an image of Alex Hales, and his pet dog. They have included this image because it has come up that the Nottinghamshire batsman named his dog Kevin. This can be a racial slur against people of colour, and Rafiq claims it was used as a blanket term for the non-white players in the dressing room. I think the Sun have used this image possibly to back Rafiq's claims, as it shows Hales' dog is black, but shows no evidence that Hales called his pet this with racist intentions. The Daily Mail, in the second article I looked at, they used images of three of the main names accused by Rafiq in his allegations. Tim Bresnan in the bottom left, Hoggard on the right, bottom right, and Gary Balance on the top image. This can be a powerful use of imagery as it puts faces to the names of those who have allegedly acted in a vulgar way towards a teammate. This can cause embarrassment for these players, but also putting them in the limelight shows they can't hide away from it and be used as an example to what happens if anyone was to act in similar ways. Both newspapers reportedly used this image of Rafiq, the bottom one on the bottom left, in all 5 separate articles I have chosen to look at. This repetition will keep reminding the readers of who Rafiq is, but also show how bad the situation is, as it is an image of the cricketer during his tribunal in which he kept becoming upset. To use this image repeatedly, I think, can help reinstate the feeling of sympathy for Rafiq and help add empathy to the articles as it shows a person upset. Language. I also looked at the language used in each article. The second headline uses the idiom "floodgates are open" to show that how Rafiq has been vocal about these experiences. Many more who were once afraid felt they could come forward. Including this, the headline can be a good way of gaining the interest of the audience, potentially giving them more details on a broader scale and not just specifically Rafiq's case. Throughout all articles I looked at, the adjectives used have been very important in expressing the level of the situation. For example, The Sun uses adjectives such as horrendous, shocking, inhumane and horrifying. They also describe Rafiq as tearful and powerful. The Daily Mail included a singular phrase, "It hurts," he said, in the 5th article I looked at. Having this on a singular line between 2 quotes also by Rafiq can have more of an impact on the reader as it is isolated itself and stands out further. The next thing I looked at was negative and positive support. In this part of the Azeem Payne article, the Sun uses language to show support of Rafiq's case by implying Dave Lloyd was forced to apologise, showing that the Sun are on Rafiq's side, and although reporting what had occurred are making it clear that someone has had to be pushed to apologise rather than off their own back. In the first article I looked at The Sun, the first sentence they call Rafiq brave. During his testimonial, the fact they have wrote this word in bold and capitalised it shows support and a sign of respect towards the cricketer as he speaks about a tough situation. The fifth Daily Mail article includes a paragraph about what has happened to since Rafiq spoke out. I think this shows that the Daily Mail aren't just reporting on the story but also showing positivity towards Rafiq's actions, showing that there is good coming from Rafiq speaking out. The second Daily Mail article is an article in full support of Rafiq and how he handled the situation. This is summed up in the headline, describing Rafiq as brave, dignified, and articulate. Using these adjectives shows that the Daily Mail think he is doing well on himself for coming forward and speaking, but also doing it in a very professional manner and not stooping to the level of those he is accusing. I then did some primary research. I sent out a survey via SurveyMonkey. I had 5 questions, including: have you seen any news about discrimination within sport recently? How did you source this information? How did this platform present the news in your opinion? What language was used when presenting the news? Have you seen any news sources using discriminatory terms within their headlines? From the responses I got, it shows that it's still a very big issue within sport, despite Black Lives Matter, Rafiq speaking out, and multiple other movements. You can see that every response said yes to recently seeing discrimination in sports news. Despite this, majority of stories covering these stories have supported the victim, shunned the aggressor. One person did say the news source, they did in fact use language repeatedly towards the victim, showing that despite a low number is still happening. Another point I saw from the response to question 5 was a few responses highlighted specific athletes such as Raheem Sterling and Marcus Rashford. This can possibly show that This can possibly show that in the public eye, the media attack the same athletes over and over again, rather than reporting on those being discriminated every day. I then carried out some secondary research. Where Hall and Van Dyke show that the media can lead people's opinions and views from how they cover events in sport through their use of language and content. It is suggested that research into the media's treatment of race over the years has suggested that its reporting has been limited in its themes and negative in its content. Saeed suggests that the media, more often than not, have discounted views from ethnic minorities in their writing and instead favoured the views of ethnic majorities. On the other hand, Hartman and Husband suggested that when the views and opinions of minority groups are used in articles and covered by the media, they are often used in a negative way. The third point suggests that the issue within the media in regard to racism and other forms of discrimination start at the top of the tree. The suggestion that the issues come from problems in power and status could show that having people of ethnic majorities in important roles within the media is the main cause for discrimination and ignorance towards ethnic minorities. Hilton and Pitcher determined that over the years it has become normalised for race and ethnicity to be a talking point in sports media. This could possibly be a reason for the public's ignorance towards certain phrases and language being used in the media despite it being politically incorrect and discriminative. For example, in the Azim Rafiq allegations spoke about earlier in the presentation, within the Yorkshire setup, it had become normalised for a certain derogatory language towards Asian players. This backs up their point of it becoming normalised as it was acted on until Rafiq spoke out. The first point suggests that the media stereotyping black athletes as naturally gifted and white athletes as one that have worked hard for their success for decades, despite the positivity and comments about natural talent in black athletes. This also created a hierarchical viewpoint within the media and society that white athletes of those of ethnic majority have a broader list of skills and attributes ahead of ethnic minority athletes, for example, leadership and stronger mentality to work towards goals. To round off the presentation, I have wrote 2 stories on the topic at hand, one of them of which I interviewed head of first team operations at Warwickshire County Cricket Club, Keith Cook. I have posted both my stories, with the other one being a local fan of Warwickshire, Thomas Williamson, on his views of media coverage in local cricket compared to global cricket and other countries. I've posted both stories on my blog, as you can see the link below, and I've also posted them on my Twitter page as well for extra viewership. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Isaac Darville on how racism is covered in cricket by the media.